What up, YouTube? What's good? This is Steven. Welcome back. Alright, so a couple of weeks ago, I posted a video titled, Dear Foreign Black People, You Are Not Better Than Black Americans. Alright, I posted that video and I received a few responses actually. So far, there's about 161 comments on this video. All right, so I received a few responses from people, ranging from, "Oh yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from," to the other side of it, where it's like, "Oh, f you, what do you know? Shut the f up," very malicious and aggressive in their comments. And also some people that are kind of like in the middle. So a variety of responses. But today, actually, a YouTube user posted a very, long, in-depth, and informative comment that I would like to respond to in this video. And shout out to the YouTube user TheWhat667. Thank you very much for your response. As well, it's very lengthy and very in-depth, and you go into a lot of things. And I really want to go through this, all right, and respond to pretty much more or less the points that you bring up in your response, okay? So let's get into this. And by the way, I actually don't know if you're a male or a female. I'm getting a male vibe, so I'll refer to you as male. But I could be wrong. Just wanted to put that out there, just in case me feeling, like I'm being shady or something. I'm not. Just from the name, and also I checked your profile, no picture and nothing like that. So, yeah. Disclaimer. All right, disclaimer. And also, before I get into this, I gave a disclaimer in the previous video, you guys, and folks still kind of came at me like I was being like malicious and vicious towards foreign black people, which I definitely wasn't. That wasn't my intention, but I did have to tell things how they just keep it real. I just had to keep it real and be 100 about it, right? All right. So let's get into this. Here we go. Quote unquote, "You gave us away to them" is not a true statement. All right. So, what the, aka TW, he is making a response to something that I said in my previous video, where I said to West African people, "Oh, you gave us away to them," as in, you gave us away to the devil, basically. Cave beasts, cave monsters, cave demons, devils, what have you, right? And they had their way with us, right? He's saying that is not a true statement. He goes on to say, "That is a lie told by slave masters who do not want to take responsibility for their evil deeds. Sadly, most American blacks believe that Africans sold their people into slavery. You see, after the whites pillaged the African land of its valuable resources, they figured they could take the African natives too. Imagine yourself as a native African with a spear and a white person pointing a gun at you. You don't know what it is until it pops and the person next to you drops to the ground. You would drop your spear and run for your dear life. The fear of the white man's weapon psychologically crippled the native African. If you understood the African culture, you would cringe at the notion that native Africans willfully sold their own people as slaves. West Africans are very gregarious. I think that's how you say it, gregarious. They value family. The family is an African pride. Go there and see for yourself. To think of Africans advertising to white people and saying that they want to sell their own people is inconceivable. It is only after slave trade was at its peak that references are made of some dubious Africans participating, I guess, in that evil business to benefit themselves. These were exceptions. For an instance, well, dot, dot, dot. For an instance, if you owed someone some money and couldn't pay your debt, the person you owed could capture you and hand you over in exchange for the money you owed. Also, war prisoners could be sold for money rather than killed. Those are the exceptions. But generally, Africans trading their own people is simply not true. Okay, he said TW here said a whole lot of stuff, and I feel like if we as black people in the diaspora are going to come and connect with each other, especially making a connection back to the motherland, we've got to be 100% upfront and honest and take responsibility for what the part that we played in this. And I'm directing this towards West African people, okay? Because what was posted here just don't add up. And what I mean by that is there's plenty of receipts showing that West African people played a part in this slave trade. Let's be honest. Come on, we have to be honest, be candid, and keep it real. We can't just pretend like it didn't happen. We can't be on no Holocaust-ish with, how white people, be saying like, oh, the Holocaust didn't happen. We can't be on stuff like that. We gotta be, if we're gonna bridge the gap, we've got to be honest and take responsibility. And let me bring up a couple of receipts. This is from TheRoot.com, by the way. And I think some people say that The Root is kind of like a bit like coonish, but they got the receipts, so I'll give them credit for that. Let me go through and get this. Many West African nations and tribes have issued apologies for their role in the transatlantic slave trade to Black Americans, and even to specific African American individuals who have traced their ancestry to certain locals or locale. I think locales. Sorry. And who would otherwise have never received an apology. In 1999, the president of Benin, a neighbor of Nigeria, apologized for his nation's role in slavery. In 2006, Ghana apologized to American descendants of slaves. A few months ago, a Cameroonian chieftain apologized to an African American who traced his lineage to a couple of local clans. Other West African tribal leaders have done the same. All right, so right there, they're not apologizing for just the sake to apologize. They're apologizing for the history that they know to be true. Okay? We can't just pretend like it didn't happen. That's no. All right? Just like if I did something to you on a personal level, like if I stole your car and crashed it, and you're looking at me like, what the fuck, right? And I'm just like, what are you talking about? That didn't happen. I didn't do that. Right? You'd be like, what the I saw you. I got the receipts on you doing this, right? So, there you go. And this article also goes on to explain a couple of more things and add some more, well, clear up some pieces to the puzzle. I know that was a crappy metaphor, but let me read and I'll let you know what I mean. This will tell you. The reasons for these apologies is the role that some West African tribes and clans played in trading away people from neighboring tribes that they captured in a war or kidnapped. Though this may appear to have been Africans selling Africans into slavery, it was not that simple. As many scholars have noted, calling all participants quote-unquote African presumes a unified identity among captors and captives that did not exist during the transatlantic slave trade. So right there, they're saying like tribalism, basically. Tribalism, and European people took advantage of that tribalism that continues to this day. African people still haven't learned how to, put some shit aside and come together for some reason, even though you can see other nations in other continents doing that. And that's just me putting it out there because a lot of folks love to point the finger towards African Americans, right? They love to point the finger and look at, oh, look how dysfunctional you guys are. I'm like, what? Oh, we got a reason to be dysfunctional if you know our history. All right. I'll get into that later, though. Let me finish up this part and go back to TW's comments. All right. Different tribes saw themselves as completely distinct and held no inherent loyalties to one another, just as people today in Montreal, Mexico City, and Washington, D.C. do not see one another as American brothers simply because they sit on the same continent. Okay, that is true. However, many West African nations now feel compassion and a sense of responsibility for the descendants of those taken from African soil. They recognize the atrocity and the complicity of some of their ancestors in allowing it to occur. So they have apologized without condition. All right. Based on TW's comment, he's saying like the whole thing never happened and just that white people then just took over, basically, and it's basically all white folks' fault, right? And that's not completely true. Yes, white people do have a lot of blood on their hands for what they did, but there are some African people who have blood on their hands for what they did too. Let's be real. Let's be honest here. It wasn't all them, because honestly, if the Africans didn't work together and help in it, it probably wouldn't have been as prosperous, honestly. Even despite the technological advantage that white people had, it still wouldn't have been it wouldn't have flourished the way that it did. So again, we got to be honest, keep it real. All right. I'm going to go into the next part of TW's comment. All right. The American blacks were not brought to America as slaves. My African people were the ones brought here as slaves. You were born free in America, and somewhere along your genealogy, you might have a white person in your family tree. So why do you continue to talk as though you are a slave? You are free. But my African people in America were not free. They were slaves. They paid the price for you and I to meet. So why are we hating on each other? All right, so let me go through this comment. There's a whole lot of stuff I need to address in this comment. All right. The American blacks, right there, he already is referring to us as American blacks versus African Americans. And I know, like, black people, we do kind of like tend to say black versus African American. But in this particular context, I think African American would help bridge the gap. But the person who posted this comment sees a difference, right? He's making a distinction because he could say African American, but he's saying American blacks, right? He's making a distinction and separation there. Yes, of course, there is a reason to have a separation, but the thing is, why not say African American? I know some people gonna say, I'm reaching, I'm being a little petty with that, but the small details tell a very big story. Also, listen to the comment that he posted. The American blacks were not brought to America as slaves. My African people were the ones brought here as slaves. Okay, the thing is, we are American blacks are descended from those people, though. It's not like there's us. That's what I'm calling out, and that's what I'm talking about. Trying to make this like disconnect here. We're supposedly trying to come together, but you're making a disconnect between the Africans that came here initially as slaves and the descendants. Like African Americans here are the descendants of the African slaves that were brought to America. It's it's not a difference. It's a boat ride, right? That's the difference. A boat trip, right? Some slaves were brought to the United States. Some were brought to parts of the Caribbean, like Puerto Rico, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Jamaica. Some were brought to Brazil, Mexico. It's a boat trip, like a boat stop. That's the difference. All those people are of West African origin. They may not claim it, some of them, particularly like the folks from like Spanish-speaking countries. Some of them, not all of them. And the Portuguese-speaking country, Brazil as well. Some of them, not all of them. And even some folks from like, the English-speaking Caribbean. Some, but not all, right? But that's another story. Like you say, like, my African people were the ones brought here as slaves. Like, they're my African people too, though. Like, that's the thing. Those are my people too. Like, I claim those people as like my ancestors, right? And I feel like maybe I'm reaching, but I feel like if African Americans were totally just denying their African ancestry, then I feel like some Native African people would feel some type of a way about that. Even though by and large they're not denying their West African ancestry. But another story for another day. All right. He also says, you were born free in America, and somewhere along your genealogy, you may have had a white person in your family tree. I wonder how that happened. It's a variety of ways that could happen. It could have happened a lot of different ways, but usually a lot of people tend to attribute it to like slave rapes. If you can't like point blank, trace your non-black lineage back to a specific person or a specific family, if they are like a ghost within your genealogy or your family tree, probably. And of course, that's because we were given or sold to the devil, and the devil had his way with us, or had its way with us, honestly. And we did the best that we could considering the situation. And you have to know, like, those people, they were in a brand new place that they didn't know anything about, right? They had no rights, no type of sense of home, sense of safety, So, and also, there are some black people who are like first generational mix, right? They have a white ancestor or whoever ancestor within the first generation. Like they have a non-black parent too. All right. So he goes on to say, so why do you continue to talk as though you are a slave? And this kind of seems reminiscent of like something that a white person would say. Like, I'm not talking as if I'm a slave. I'm trying to bring light to the situation, right? We're trying to address things and call some things out, like, being sold or given away to the devil, right? The white devil, all right? But the thing is, y'all don't want to speak on that. So now it's like, oh, you have a slave mentality. Why do you think you're a slave? Right? Because y'all don't want to deal with that. Just like how white people do. That's where that comes from. You are free. Yes, we are free, and black people definitely paid the price to be free. African Americans definitely paid the price to be free. Okay. But my African people in America were not free. They're the same thing. We're the same. We're descended from the same people. That's the thing. You're making a distinction between them and us. Like, Africa, you're making a distinction when it's like, no, we came from them, right? We consider them our ancestors. They are our ancestors. They paved the way for us and helped. They endured so much to help us so that we didn't have to endure the same type of treatment, right? And also, again, if you loved these people so much and you cared about them so much, why didn't you ever come over to get these people? Where was your ship coming over to say, you know what, fuck this, we're going to get our people back? That ain't happen. That didn't happen. So, yeah. So he goes on to say, but my African people in America were not free. They were slaves. They paid the price for you and I to meet. That I agree on. They did pay that price. So, why are we hating on each other? The thing is, I'm not hating on you. That's the thing. People get it so twisted, They be getting it like, they be getting so messed, confused, angry, and emotional over a call out. But the thing is, though, like, a call out ain't forever, though. Nigga, we want you to get better. That's the thing. Like, a call out don't mean you are a piece of shit forever. It just means that at this particular moment you're doing some foul shit and you need to be called out on it so that you can change. You can address it. That's the thing. And I'm not coming from a place of hate. I hope that you're not coming from a place of hate either. But I don't know. All right, so let's move on to the next part of this comment. Yeah, this turned out to be a very lengthy video here. I do agree with you. Sorry, let me see. I do agree with one thing you have said, though. We foreign blacks are able to come to America because of the presence of the black people here in America. Okay, all right. It seems like we're headed in the right direction, if you can at least admit that, because some folks don't seem to want to admit that. They want to pretend like, oh, it was just white people, right? Because they see a white person, signing off on some paperwork, perhaps, or because they see a white person in the position of being a president. But no, don't get it twisted, all right? Black people put the ink in that pen, all right? All right, so let's move on to the next part. So essentially, our African ancestors made that possible. Okay, so now he's saying our African ancestors, even though he was making a distinction between us, the current African Americans versus the African Americans of the past, the enslaved African Americans. But now he's seemingly turning it into us, again. So essentially, our African ancestors made that possible. So you see, We Africans feel the same pain that you do. Dot, dot, dot. Our ancestors suffered for this country. Ugh. By and large, for some reason, I don't believe that statement to be true. I think as a collective, I think West African people are pretty indifferent, actually. You know, they're probably thinking about it now because, oh, they can, come over and get a piece of the American pie. And you're welcome, by the way. You're welcome for that. Okay. All right. Next, I submit to you that in most cases, Africans and American blacks do get along. However, in some cases, they do not. I will, I will agree with that. I think so. And there's so many reasons why that is, you know. And to be fair, it can kind of come from both sides of the spectrum, not just one or the other. Um, Therefore, as a West African black person in America, I will share with you something about Africans and the reasons some African and American blacks do not seem to get along. Ready? Hit me. Okay, so he's going to go into a list of things here. And, this is a lengthy list, by the way. All right. Y'all ready for this? Here we go. Number one, Africans and American blacks have one thing in common: skin color. Okay, that is true. Number two, other than that, American blacks have a different culture from African blacks. Yes, that is true. Because we weren't able to hold on to our culture when we came here. It was beaten out of us. If we were seen practicing any parts of our culture, we would either be beaten or killed. So we couldn't hold on to that culture. I'm sure we all would have liked to have held on to that, but we couldn't. All right. So don't judge us for that. All right. It's not like we just threw it away and was like, oh, just throw it away and just, become American. Right? That's not the black experience in America, the African American experience. All right. Number three, newly arrived Africans have a hard time understanding American black accent. Well, that can go the other way around too. And there's media of black, or there's black people in the media, so you're not completely just unfamiliar with it, at least, because I know some African people listen to rap music. Some African American people look at black television shows, black movies, listen to the black music, etc. Right? Are you judging us because our cadence is a little different? Right? I guess because we talk like this instead of like this. Right? Well, I mean, people have talked about the cadence of my voice and the sound of my voice. Because I don't have that, that baritone, signature baritone black man voice, where it's like, come here, like some R&B singer from the 80s, As well, I definitely don't speak with an African accent, because I don't speak like I'm from the motherland, because I don't come from the motherland. I come from the American land, so I don't speak like that. But it's okay though. All right, it's okay. It's right. But okay, we can get through that. All right, a different cadence. All right, that's all beautiful at the end of the day. All right. Next, number four. Consequently, there is a language barrier that creates barriers to communication. If you speak English, I'm sure we can get through. If you speak in French or like, a native African language, okay, yeah, we got a language issue there. All right. Number 5, West African blacks have different dialects. Okay, fair enough. All right. All West Africans are not the same. All West Africans do not have the same language, same customs, cultural practices, etc. Okay. But oftentimes we just use like West African as like a blanket term because we can't, it's like so many different West African countries. We can't just go through the whole name, like every single name of them. We'll be speaking forever. So West African is sort of like a blanket term. Sort of like how we use like for Latin American people or like Middle Eastern people, Hispanic people, North American people, South American people, Asian people, European people, right? It's blanket terms, right? Number 6. Some African blacks have very rigid, closed cultures not open to outsiders. No matter what color you are, they even discriminate against other Africans. So, if you happen to meet an African from this culture, don't take it personally. He is not against you because you are an American black. Okay, I will say thank you very much for that information. I didn't know that. I think that helps demystify some of this. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Number 7, most African blacks come to America as an adventure that they can afford. Okay, all right. Some come as like, to start a new family, I guess. But okay, I'll just take your word for it. Most African blacks come to Africa as an adventure that they can afford. Okay, I'll just accept that. I got some rebuttals for that, but I'm just going to accept that. All right. Number 8, African blacks hate to see American blacks, quote unquote, taking the back seat in a country where black African slaves worked hard to build. Yes, as we feel the same way, by the way. And we do fight and advocate for more, status, influence, and power, wealth, etc., trying to get a piece of the pie that we helped bake. All right, we do. But look at the people that we're dealing with. Look at the people who we're dealing with, though. Right? These people didn't want us to have anything. All right? Nothing. They didn't want us to have anything. We were shut out of the American experience, right? The Homestead Act we could not participate in the Homestead Act. We could not participate in the GI Bill, or at least it was very difficult for us to participate in the GI Bill. A lot of these little, white people affirmative action, policies and programs we couldn't participate in. So yeah, they have a leg up on us. We fought to get our foot into the door, right? That's partially what the civil rights movement was about, right? So that we could fight our battles in the courtroom. And that's part of what we do. But things haven't been equal until, really still not equal, but until like the 1960s, and we're still making, having to fight fights. All right. So yes, we feel the same way too. But don't think it's because we're just lazy, though. That's the thing, because that's something that Africans have in their minds. You're like, oh, y'all so lazy, right? Y'all see one aspect of a Black American culture, and you're like, oh, they're so lazy, right? I'm pretty sure if I went to your country of origin, I could see some lazy Black African folks there too. All right. The thing is, when you come over here, you guys are coming over here as like you more or less like the top 10%. Over here, we have it all. We have our top 10%, the middle, and the bottom 10%. And the American media loves to concentrate on that bottom 10%. Let's be real. All right. Next. The attitude of West African blacks in America is different from blacks in Africa. Okay. Number 10. The reason is that Africans in America are exposed to some aspects of black American culture that they do not like. For example, American black kids disrespecting their parents, talking back, and calling their parents by their first names, disrespecting their elders, and people in authority. Respect is the foundation of African culture. I agree, very much so. But again, remember, our family familial structure was against was not in the best interest of the white devil who captured and enslaved us, right? So we are not perfect. We don't profess to be, though. That's the thing. We're not perfect. We definitely have familial issues, right, that we do need to work on. I can agree with that. But it's like like we got issues, but you got them too. If you don't judge us, we won't judge you. But despite that, I still got love for you. All right. But basically for that question, I feel like there's some truth in it, but that's not 100% truth. You know. And again, here we go again with that whole kind of like, looking down on like black people, right? Again, this wouldn't have happened if we were not captured and given to the devil, right? You have a role to play in this, and I gotta keep calling it like I see it and bringing it back. When you want to just put it all on us, right? You can't. It's like if you had kids and you gave them to like a sexual predator, and then like years later you look your kid up and see what they're up to, and you're like, oh my god, they're so crazy and just a degenerate, and you're like, well, what did you expect? Come on, what did you expect? Honestly, I think we're doing a lot better than we should be, considering all that we've been through as a people. So I consider that somewhat of a win. All right, number 11. Yes, American blacks are killing each other. No doubt the same thing is happening in some African cultures because of tribal wars, but you, the American blacks, are like an endangered species of a people. You should protect and preserve yourself. Here we go with that black on black crime, right? And let me tell you something. Sorry. The inside of my lip was itching. I know, random. But let me tell you something, though. All right, black on black crime does not exist, all right? How come every time when it's a black person, it's like black on black crime? But I have never heard the term white on white crime. I've never heard the term Asian on Asian crime, Latino on Latino crime, Middle Eastern on Middle Eastern crime, etc. I've never heard those phrases. But when it's us, all of a sudden they want to push that up, right? Here's the thing. Statistically speaking, you're more likely to suffer a crime, suffer from some type of a crime by someone of your same racial group, because most people tend to live in areas that have their racial group that they're the majority in. Like black people tend to live in black communities, white people tend to live in white communities, Asian people in Asian communities, etc. So you're more likely to be the victim of an Asian person if you're an Asian person living in an Asian community. White goes same thing for white, Latino, black people too. And I noticed here you kind of wanted to put something out there, like Oh yeah, just in case I brought up the whole tribalism thing, you wanted to bring that up, you know, seemingly as a way to just, say like, oh, you've acknowledged it, right? You acknowledge that there's tribalism and issues in Africa. But again, like, I could say the same thing to you guys, right? Like, what's up with you guys? You guys still haven't learned. You got played, all right? Centuries ago, you got played. They took your people, right? Y'all didn't come and get us, so obviously, y'all wasn't about too much, all right? But still, y'all still ain't learned. But I don't know why that is. Perhaps you could enlighten me on that. You know, and there are organizations that have been addressing, quote unquote, black on black crime, by the way, you know. Number 12, African blacks frown at single parent families. Well, how did they become single parent families? Right? I mean, I think ideally the, two-parent household is the ideal, but, again, it's like, stop frowning and down at us. Damn. What the fuck is wrong with you people? Sorry. I have to take it there. If you're coming at me like this, I gotta talk with you people. Just every time y'all take any moment to look down on us. Right? Again, you're here because of us. As dysfunctional as we may be, you're here because of us and the strides that we made. Remember that. Right? When you want to look at us as being lazy and degenerate and lacking family values, right? Again, who played a role in that? West Africa. Who played a role in that? Besides the white people. We already know that. Besides them, who else played a role in that? You guys did. Number 13. American blacks use slavery as an excuse all the time. Though discrimination is systemic, slavery ended a long time ago. Use the law to empower and better yourself. That's what we do, and that's what we've been doing for a while. We've been doing a combination of the law and also grassroots efforts lately. It's not like we're not doing anything. But again, I know you guys don't want to address slavery because you guys are implicated in that. It is what it is. I don't even like saying that phrase, but that's the reality of the situation, though. Y'all don't want to address it because y'all implicated in it, and y'all don't want to own up to the part that you played in it. All right. This is why there's going to be an issue between us, and there's going to continue to be an issue between us because you guys want to essentially just flip the script and make it seem like we're the problem. While yes, we are a group of people who have issues, as any group of people do. What are your issues? But now it's like, oh, you're just angry. Number 14. African blacks hate to see immigrants in America being treated better than American blacks. Many companies would hire an Asian before they hired an American black. Well, that's because Asian people are, honorary white people. Okay? We can't be quote unquote honorary white people because America was built on the exclusion of black people. It was built on the backs of black people. It was built on anti-blackness. All right? So yes, it is easier for other immigrant groups to come over here because they're not the primary target. And sometimes those immigrant groups will collude with white supremacy and help oppress us and help perpetuate anti-blackness. All right? All right, so that was the end of the comment. Thank you very much for that comment. There's a lot of information in the comment that you posted. I really appreciate the feedback, despite, you know, my response, the emotion of my response, etc. You just want to put it out there and clear up a few things just in case. I do not hate you or other West African people, okay, or any black people, honestly. You know, whether they're, what any part of the diaspora, right? I just have some animosity towards a certain mentality that some black people have, particularly some foreign black people have, in regards to African Americans. But again, I know that all foreign black people do not have that mentality. So, thank you very much. I really appreciate the response. Unfortunately, I don't see us coming to some sort of a meeting of the mind, or coming to some sort of an agreement, or some sort of a alliance. I don't see that happening. Thus, white supremacy will continue to reign. That's the fucked up shit about it. That's what's fucked up about it. White supremacy is just going to continue to reign while we can't be real and upfront and take responsibility for anything. Right? We can't own up to anything, right? At this point, I think it's going to take some divine intervention. I don't know, like a miracle or something. It's going to take some divine intervention, but perhaps maybe in the future we can find some sort of a common ground. We can come together somehow and bridge the gap. Perhaps, I'm hopeful for the future. So, thanks a lot for watching, you guys. I know this video was really long. I hope you were able to get something out of this video. Thank you very much for watching this video. And if you made it to the end of this video, and you comment, by the way, could you post Black African Unity? That way it kind of lets me know that you made it to the end of the video, right? Thank you very much, though. Adios and goodbye for now.